is lovely to see you here. I'm on a mission, actually, to inform people about what psychology is. The public understanding of psychology is pretty poor. There's a lot of misinformation out there. Did you know, for example, that you don't have to study psychology A-level to study psychology at degree level? In fact, some psychology departments actually prefer that you didn't. I think that may be because psychology is such a popular subject. There aren't enough teachers who are specialists. So I think some departments worry that you might be mistaught. Of course, at Bootham, you do have specialists to teach you psychology. And I really don't want you to miss out by not knowing what psychology is, because psychology might be for you. I wonder how you will know that you want to study psychology at university if you don't do psychology A-level. So I just want to make sure that you really know what it is. So I'm going to start with a bit of clip, some serious fun that I want you to actually do as Wiseman speaks to you.
Welcome to the world's quickest personality test. What I'd like you to do is hold out your hands in front of you, make certain they're level, and then close your eyes. So don't just sit there, actually do it. Hands out, and now close your eyes. Don't lose my voice in the darkness. Now imagine there's a helium balloon attached to the fingers of your right hand. So it's gently pulling your right hand up into the air. At the same time, imagine a pile of books on your left hand. The books are pushing down on your left hand and pushing it towards the floor. The balloon is pulling the right hand up, the books pushing the left hand down. Now enjoy any images that float into your mind, but still remember that your hands are being pushed and pulled. Excellent. Now open up your eyes. So what does it mean? Well, if your hands are far apart, then you tend to have a good imagination. You're sensitive, intuitive, and you easily become absorbed in books and films. If your hands are level, you're more down to earth. You're more logical, you're more analytical, and you enjoy puzzles and games. And if you saw an image of a puppy, well, you just tend to be a little bit suspicious.
That was really interesting to watch because there was a real distinction between those who did show the suggestibility and those who didn't. And I was also very impressed because I think you all did exactly what you were told. Because if you watch that clip again on YouTube, you'll find that actually he was doing some things with when your eyes were closed that clearly a lot of you didn't spot because you would have been laughing if you had. So that was Professor Richard Wiseman, who's an excellent psychologist, and he is actually a professor for the public understanding of psychology. Now, I chose that clip not because psychology is all about personality. I chose that clip to make a point. And the point I want to make is that psychology is not all about gimmicky science tricks. And it's not all about suggestibility. However, it will involve you in practical activities. You will do research for yourself, and you will do activities in class that are practical and useful to you. You're going to learn research methods in context because that is the best way to learn it. Okay, just going to show you another clip.
Let's start with a quick exercise. I'd like you to force your face into a smile. Don't just sit there, actually give it a go. Force your face into a smile. Now hold that expression. Everyone knows that when they feel happy, they smile. But research shows the opposite is also true. When you force your face into a smile, you start to feel happier. Keep smiling. The same is true of how you talk and even walk. If you put energy into your voice and a spring in your step, you'll suddenly feel much better. Okay, you can stop smiling now. How do you feel? Did it work for you? I hope so. And next time you want a quick dose of delight, just spend 30 seconds or so behaving like a happy person.
Again, this is evidence-based, and it really does work. It's not placebo effect. It's not just, again, suggestibility. It really does change your brain chemistry, and rapidly, too. This is some of the latest research in positive psychology. In fact, evidence shows that smiling can make you not just feel happy, but more importantly, be resilient to difficult experiences. So they did a piece of research where they got people to do a tough task that they would fail at. And they measured the people's mood and their self-esteem before and afterwards. And unsurprisingly, their mood and self-esteem took a hit from that unpleasant experience. But then they had taken one group and they had got them to... They didn't know they were faking a smile. They were just asked to hold a pen between their teeth, like that. And there was a significant effect. I'll just wait for you to go through. Hi, Tom. There was a significant effect. So they were, their mood and self-esteem had taken a significantly smaller hit due to the task. They were more resilient. Now, a real smile is even more effective. Do you know the difference between a smile and a real smile?
Take a look at these two photographs. One of them shows a genuine smile, the other shows a fake smile. See if you can spot the fake smile. Give yourself 1 point if you chose this photograph. Now try again with these photographs. Here's the correct answer. And finally, try to spot the fake smile here. If you scored 3 out of 3, then you're good at reading other people's expressions. 2 out of 3, and you're okay. And if you scored 1 or 0, then you might want to know the secret to spotting a fake smile. During a genuine smile, tiny crinkles appear around the sides of the eyes. During a fake smile, these crinkles are missing. So next time you want to know if someone's really happy to see you, simply look at the sides of their eyes.
So, a real smile is most effective, but even a fake smile, if you were dealing with, say, somebody difficult on the phone, you end up in a job like that, even a fake smile would help you to be more resilient. As I say, useful psychology that you will be studying. Passionately believe that everybody should study psychology during their education. I think in decades to come, they'll look back and they said, what you understood so much in that era about the brain and about behaviour, and you weren't teaching it to everybody in school. And I think this is one of the most useful things to be aware of, the difference between reality and perception, and how different the two things can be, because we go around in a state of naive realism, believing we open our eyes and in comes reality, and that is not the case at all. Studying psychology will help you to understand and realise the difference and break down those assumptions, which can lead to all sorts of problems in the world, I think, as well. For example, if you've never seen this famous illusion before, and I ask you to read it, you will do your best, and you will say, it says Paris in the spring. And I'll say, no, read it again properly. And you'll say, Paris in the spring. And you'll start to get a bit nervous. You'll be like, but it says Paris in the spring. But of course it doesn't. If you look at it properly, it says Paris in the spring. You can see the now I pointed it out to you, but I bet you struggled if you'd never seen this before. Because you go round seeing what you expect to see. You open your eyes, and all manner of things are happening that you might not be aware of. So, understanding perception is important, it's fascinating. Psychology is not necessarily all about these whiz-bang things, as I've said to you before. And I'm not going to talk to you a great deal about the course itself, though I will touch on that today, because you can look in the textbook. I will even give you a login for the digital textbook, and you can see what we're actually doing right now. And you can see what's there. But I want today to make you aware of what starting psychology would actually be like. In psychology, you'll be studying the tip of the iceberg. In fact, you'll be studying one tip of the many, many icebergs there are in psychology, because you are such a complex, conscious creature, and that's what psychology is studying. So we can only give you a grounding in that amazing subject. You would then go on, if you wanted to specialise at university and then beyond. Psychology is a subject, it's sizzling with cutting-edge science. And it's very much in the process of discovery. So you have got an amazing opportunity as young people to actually discover something yourself. The psychologists are still alive that have some of the most famous theories. Here is one that we went to visit the other day. He might not be recognisable to you, but to us psychologists, he's a celebrity figure. He's one of the most famous psychologists worldwide. There might be a lot of misunderstanding in the UK government about psychology, but not so for Obama. Obama had announced his billion-dollar brain initiative in 2013. You may have heard the idea that we know more about space, deep space, than we know about the deep oceans. Well, we know even less about the space between your ears. And it's ripe for discovery. That said, we do know quite a few new interesting things. Dr. Guy Sutton came for Brain Day last Tuesday, and he taught me this. We can now implant memories into sleeping mice's brains. Just astonishing. So if I just explain this bit of neuroscience to you, what you do is you have the mouse explore a new environment, okay? And you monitor its brain activity. And you work out, by looking at the patterns, that when it's in the corner of its box, the nerves fire like this, for example. Whereas in the centre of its new habitat, we've got a different pattern of firing. Yeah? So we can now recognise those firing patterns. And then little mouse has a nap for an hour, as mice do, and it dreams of its recent experiences just like you do. And during its sleep, we can actually identify when it's dreaming of the different parts of the box. So when we hear, I don't know whether that was the right banging, but that's the corner firing sound, yeah? When we spot that, we can actually stimulate the frontal cortex of the mouse, where we know it has a pleasure centre, and implant pleasure into its dream of that part of its environment. So what does the mouse do when it wakes from its sleep? Does it wander at random around the box? What does it do? This is a moment for participation. Yeah. Now you might think, oh, that's cool, but so what? That's mice. But some of you may realise, of course, that this has applications for humans. Depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, perhaps, particularly, phobia, this sort of thing. And it's not all mice research. Oh, yeah, these are the two researchers, Liu and Ramirez. They've done amazing things with humans. I haven't got time to talk to you about this now, but if you want me to, and you can obviously look up this link, they've actually managed to do telepathy, not of the psychic kind of telepathy, but where they've actually transferred information from a brain. They actually, to prove the point, sent it from the US to India and directly into another person's brain. Absolutely fascinating research. Okay, so psychology really does range from the hard science, neuroscience, and the psychophysics of perception. So, for example, you would be able to understand why if you stare at the cross in the middle of this, you will get a weird phantom green dot moving around the outside with the purple dots. But if you try and chase that dot with your eyes, you'll find it disappears. And psychologists can understand the physics of this. So neuroscience, psychophysics, hard science. But then psychology ranges all the way down to, not down to, but up to social influence and the analysis of human flourishing, peak performance, and all learning from the people who've got ideal mental health, how we might get a bit of that in our lives as well. There's a huge range of different ways of studying, but it is all scientific. Maybe that is why psychology at degree level leaves you some of the most employable. You will have a broad range of skills. If you study psychology, please do not think for one moment that it is an easy option. You're going to have to learn a new subject from scratch. So there's a lot to learn. You're going to have to deal with maths and statistics. You're going to certainly have to have an analytical, scientific approach to your understanding. You're going to do some research. And you are also going to have to write some short essays in the first year, some slightly longer essays in the second year. You're going to have to express yourself with precision and clarity if you're going to do well at the subject. So, yes, you may find that that is a joy, because there's joy in learning something that you love. And I challenge you not, I think most people will find that they do love psychology, and that makes it motivating. Motivation is everything. But if you are challenged by doing a lot of work, or if you feel that you really are not an all-rounder in terms of both the science and the writing ability, you may find psychology a particular challenge for you. Okay. Yes, these things, I guess, is what most of the psychology students over the years have said. They love the mind-bending perception activities. They never know what's going to happen next, perhaps in memory and eyewitness testimony. I'd love you to come and see the research that these students are going to do. After their AS exams, they're going to do their own piece of research. They're going to turn it into a presentation for Parents' Day. Come along. They will be brilliant, really interesting. So do come along and see those. It is such a pleasure. It is such a pleasure to teach the subject that students love. To see students take off academically because of a passion for their subject is a joy as being a psychology teacher. It's one of the best things ever. There are different sorts of students, though. Some students, like Claudia, there she is. You're so lovely, Claudia. She's gone as far as to say, not only did she always want to study it, but it's even better than she hoped. But there are some students who, discover it. Ellen, she's now left, but she came to see a psychology session, and she declared it life-changing. She said now she knew that she wanted to be a psychologist, and she is. She is still an undergraduate, but she's publishing some exciting research on body illusions and how that might help with amputees. Absolutely brilliant. She didn't even think she wanted to go to university necessarily up to that point, and then she found the thing she wanted to do. So explore not just psychology, but all sorts of possibilities, and see if you can find the thing which is your passion. Felix Moss finishing his PhD. He's Dr. Moss now. And he just happened to stumble on something which went international in the media, using eye tracking, looking at the differences in the way men and women scan bodies of other men and women. So again, have a look at that. It's really, really interesting. I get a lot of students who take psychology as a fourth subject, possibly out of interest, with the intention of dropping it. And then it becomes their, number one favourite. If you just read that quote. So that is really, really lovely to see these people taking off and getting a passion for their subject. But what I hate about being a psychology teacher is that every single year there are people who say to me, I've heard about psychology and I wish I'd taken it. I stuck with what I was sure about because, I know that I like my other subjects. I wasn't quite sure, so I didn't take it. Or they were misinformed by somebody who said that it wasn't a good option for their future studies. Or they were told that it, all sorts of spurious things. Psychology is accepted by medical schools as a science for admission. Yes, you should get advice on what you should do in combination with psychology, but it works brilliantly, for example, with business studies and economics, because economics and business studies courses at university actually include psychology. It works brilliantly for law, for architecture, for art. It works brilliantly with the philosophy side, because it is a science with philosophy, for RS, for example. And clearly it goes well with chemistry and biology or other sciences. So just make sure that if you've got a question, you come and ask somebody who is informed, though biased, come and ask somebody who is informed, and I will not give you information that isn't in your best interest. If it doesn't work well for your plans, I will tell you so, and try and give you the best advice that we can. Okay. So how hard is psychology? Classically seen as a soft option. I'm afraid it isn't. Durham University used 5 different measures to see how hard psychology was compared with the other subjects. Yeah, and this is what they found. So this is an average of a few subjects. You can see psychology nestling there in difficulty between geography and economics. And this is how difficult it is to get a grade relative to other subjects. It's kind of in the middle there. You will be in safe hands with psychology at Bootham. Since psychology started, when I came in 2000, we have consistently always had added value. So this is compared with all the subjects that these students have done together with psychology. On average, they've done better every year in psychology. And if you bear in mind that not every student gets their best grade in psychology, we're pleased with that. 10 points is half a grade there on the scale at A-level. So it's good news all round, really. Psychology has got a good standing in terms of how difficult it is and how it stretches you, and as I was saying, your employability. But it's also somewhere in the middle there in terms of how difficult it is to get high grades. Physics, chemistry, biology up there at the top, as in how difficult it is to get the grade. Psychology somewhere in the middle there. I personally think that the reason psychology is that easy to get, is somewhere in the middle in terms of getting the grades, is because so many students develop a passion for it, and so they work really hard. You will need to do that to get those high grades. It won't come on its own. So I did think I'd better mention a little bit about what the AS course core materials are. This happens to be what we're learning about at the moment with the AS group, so the first year A levels. Why were you so adorable as a baby? Why, when babies literally cry and scream and poo, do we still feel so warmly towards them? what is the effect? This is some creative work that some students have done. What is the effect on your future relationships if you have not had a good relationship with your parents when you were an infant? This is before you can have any recollection of what actually went on. Does it have an effect? And yes, it does. You need to know things like, for example, if you have skin-to-skin contact and stroke your baby in the first few days of its life, it will permanently alter its DNA to make it more resilient to stress. So they perhaps won't need to put a pen in their mouth to make them smile, or at least it would have a better effect. You need to know this, don't you, young men, about stroking your baby in the first few days of life. It is not gender bias as much as it used to be in the past. We now have a significant section on the role of fathers as well, and that as well in psychology. In fact, there's one of my lovely students who's bonded with my daughter, who came in so that they could study. They could actually study a real infant in real life with an observational method. Okay, so just a very little bit more before we go to the question and answer from the student panel. You will be developed in your critical thinking. You may have seen this amazing illusion. Some people see the dancer spinning clockwise, some see the dancer spinning anti-clockwise, some people can get it to change direction. Of course, it's not actually spinning at all. But what's interesting is that this used to be in the media associated with whether you were right-brained or left-brained, whether you're creative or whether you were logical, which is pretty much nonsense. And I want you to be able to spot neuro-nonsense as a result of this session, but particularly if you study psychology. You will have a questioning, critical analysis of everything you see on the internet, in the headlines, because you will realise how much misrepresentation there is. If you now look up on Wikipedia there, you'll see that there is, it's not linked to an explanation about right brain, left brainness, interesting as it is. So it pays to keep an open mind, but not so open that your brain falls out. Just as another quick example, what do you reckon? Does wearing horizontal stripes make you look fat? What do you reckon? Hands up for yes, wearing horizontal stripes makes you look fat. Well done, thank you for participating. Well, I like it. You're all being critical. You're like going, well, I'm not sure about the answer. Well, that was always the received wisdom. You mustn't wear stripes in this direction because it will make you look fat. And then Peter Thompson at University of York showed that actually total rubbish. Vertical stripes, horizontal stripes, you actually look thinner with stripes in the horizontal. So I was like, well, that's cool, that's interesting. I like Peter Thompson. He's also responsible for the Margaret Thatcher illusion. But then his student came along and famously did some further research and proved that he was wrong, that actually that's not true at all. If you do a real-life study of stripes, that vertical stripes make you look taller and horizontal stripes make you look slimmer. He's come back and done some more research and said, no, actually, you were wrong for this reason, and so on. So things change, and you need to keep up to date with research. It seems that it depends on the width of the stripe and whether you're looking at a real person who's rounded. Black is still the best for slimming. You will be studying a bit on mental illness, of course. You probably think psychology is a lot about that. There will be OCD, obsessive-compulsive disorder, depression, and schizophrenia in there. This is a famous cat artist who you can actually see the progression into schizophrenia and get a sort of insight into their mind by the way that their cat drawings changed. You will be studying mental illness and also a little bit about therapy. But psychology is not just about that. Psychology is also about human flourishing and how to maximise your ideal mental health and well-being. If you want to read an accessible, enjoyable book with some key studies in it, I recommend opening Skinner's Box. It's that much of an enjoyable read that you could read it at bedtime, and you wouldn't feel like work. If you want to watch something online, TED Talks, search psychology, brilliant. A couple of top recommends. If you've not seen Amy Cuddy's talk about non-verbal communication. I think everyone should see that. It's brilliant, it's useful, and it's got a great story at the end. If you have seen that, I recommend Rebecca Sachs' talk if you want to get an idea about a young researcher doing some interesting research. Really, really good. If you want to see really what the course material is like, you can go on the digital textbook that everybody's got here with this username and password. Okay. But I think right now I would like to summarise with the slide behind. Right, well, next year you will be doing a full A-level linear. So you won't sit the AS paper that these guys are doing. Most of them are going to go on to do the A2 anyway, and their AS will not count towards anything once they've got the A2. But I guess you don't need to know what those people are doing, but what you will be doing is not an AS. You'll be doing a complete course for 2 years and sitting an A-level paper.
Some of the questions, there's some short answer questions in the exams, and then there's like there's long answers as well. I don't know what's the biggest mark. What's the highest? 12 mark, and you have to kind of plan it, and you have to put kind of your opinion and conclusion at the end, and then there's like AO1, which is describing like what it is, and then AO2, and you have to evaluate, and then you kind of say, you know, your opinion a bit on it. But it's not like massive essay. I mean, you do have to write quickly, like you are quite tight on time. But it's not like, you know, writing an English essay or anything. So
that's right. So far, that's what you've experienced. There'll be multi-choice and short answer and longer questions. So the essays are usually 8 marks or 12 marks. And half of those marks will go for description of knowledge. And half of those marks will go for evaluation, just as Claudia was saying. That's at AS now. Okay? So you won't be examined at AS, though. So the full A-level essays are a bit longer, but they're still only 20 marks maximum. And again, it'll be half and half in terms of the knowledge, understanding versus the evaluation, which is the higher order skill. And obviously, we'll help you to learn how to write those essay skills. If you're doing essay-based subjects, don't be put off by psychology because it's another essay-based subject, because for university it will show that you've also got the scientific side, the analytical side, the precision language side as well to your strings to your bow, if that helps.
Well, I do biology, and I find it helps a little bit because we learn about the brain. But if I didn't do biology, I'd still be fine. Like, if you're doing essay subjects, I feel like it helps more written-wise, and everything you learn is quite like, you have a lot of time, but not, and you talk about it a lot, so you get it all covered, so it's nothing to stress about.
Is there anybody here who is doing psychology with all essays?
I'm not doing any other sciences, and it is slightly science-based, obviously, but it's similar enough to both science and essay-based that you can do it with either, so it can go with any subjects you would want to do. Jamie?
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't do any science subjects either, but it does really help you become more concise and analytical. I found that it's actually really helped with my essay subjects, so I assume that it will help with science as well as essay subjects. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
A quick thing on sciences is that at science at A-level, you actually get quite a few questions that are actually similar to psychology. I mean things like physics and chemistry. You get 3 4-mark questions which tell you to describe and explain at an expanded level compared to what you usually get 1 2-mark questions at GCSE. So I've actually found that psychology, in the way that it's a balance of essay subjects and science subjects, has actually weirdly helped me in a way with the longer questions you get in physics and chemistry compared to mathematical ones. So if you think that this is too much of an essay-based subject and won't help you in the sciences and you just go for biology, physics and chemistry, I've actually found it is quite helpful, and it has actually helped me secure marks in places where I wouldn't normally get them because I'm not the best writer. So if anybody's troubled about that, it is quite a good subject for that situation.
I don't think it is, because I wasn't very good at maths at GCSE, and I don't click with maths, and I do struggle with numbers and stuff. When it gets to numbers, I kind of scare away. But there's not, I mean, obviously there is a bit, but there's not tons. I mean, you have to understand how to like read data and interpret data, you know, like understand graphs and stuff, because you have to look at obviously other people's data and what they got as their results. But it's nothing too like strenuous in like maths, I don't think.
There's also not much math content, is there?
No.
It's very little math. There is, we did standard deviation briefly, but which is difficult. But it's such a tiny bit of the course that I'm not good at maths, but it really didn't matter because it's such a small part that it doesn't have much of an effect.
The main obstacle to people with the stats and the research methods is putting a mental block. It's not difficult. I struggle to add up. Okay, maths is not something I feel comfortable with, but that does not mean I can't be brilliant at the content which is mathematical, because mental arithmetic and maths, as you know, are 2 completely separate things. And there are some statistical tests, and the government have increased the maths content. So don't start psychology without an awareness that the maths is definitely there, and that a lot, you will be examined a lot on your understanding of research methods. That's certainly true in psychology, but it's true of all the sciences. Have got an increased maths and research content. I hope to be able to put on some +1 courses. You know, if you're doing EPQ next year as kind of your 4th option, extended project qualification. Have you heard about that? A lot of people, about 50 have embarked on it this year. Is that right? Anybody doing EPQ? So we hope as a school to be able to put on some other options so that not everybody needs to do the EPQ. And I think some of those will include a standalone AS, actually, Mariana. So watch this space, because we are in development of what those +1s might be.